I get asked questions all the time when it comes to being a wedding planner and what the business looks like, etc. And if you've been around here for a minute, then you know I have a whole wedding business industry focused podcast called The Union Podcast, where I get to do a deep dive into these things and tell you my true and honest thoughts on some things that the wedding industry talks about. And one of them we are going to hyper focus on today, and that is certification. Is wedding planner certification a scam? If you are interested in listening to more wedding industry focused podcasts, check out Union Podcast right here. I'd love to have you over there. There's literally been tens of thousands of downloads on this podcast already, and we are absolutely obsessed with it. I'd love to have you over there. But if you want to figure out my thoughts on the whole certification process, go ahead and keep on watching. And without further ado, let's just jump right on into it, shall we? If I had a nickel for every time I got asked this question, I would have so many nickels. All the time, people are like, hey, what is wedding planning certification and do I need it? What wedding planning certification do you recommend and why? And I was like, you know what? It's high time that I just sit down and make a podcast about this because I have thoughts and I have feelings and I do not like wedding planner certification courses. There, I said it. And I'm just ripping the Band-Aid off. I might ruffle some feathers by this whole conversation. So this is not to say that if you've been through certification process that it was not healthy, that it was not the right choice for you, that you shouldn't have made that choice. I'm not saying that at all. This is for the people who are on the fence and all they see on the internet is you should probably be certified. Coming from a 7-year veteran in the wedding planning space, I can tell you that you do not need to be certified at all whatsoever to run a successful wedding planning business. It literally has no merit or no bearing on how successful you are as a planner. Now, we all need to be educated somehow. We all have to learn how to plan a wedding. That being said, they don't hold anything proprietary, nor is there any sort of national standard when it comes to wedding planner certification that is a gold standard that everyone adheres to. There are certification courses that have existed for a long period of time that have become well-renowned because they've been around for so long, but there is no measurement or standard or set of things that has to be instructed or taught in order for you to receive that certification. There is no LSAT for wedding planners. There is no, I was talking with my husband about this specifically. He's a general contractor, and there are rules and regulations that general contractors have to abide by kind of wherever you're at. There's the ICCs, the International Construction Codes, I think they are. There's national codes. There's things that they have to adhere to. We don't have that in the wedding planning space. Nothing like that exists. So there's kind of this idea that that's what the certification courses are, but there is no nationalized standard for what needs to be taught in these courses at all. And full disclosure, I am saying this and I have an online mastermind where I teach people how to become wedding planners. That is a part of what we do. We had enough people coming to me saying hey, could you teach me how to do this? Hey, could you teach me how to do this? And I was like, oh, sure. Wow, I didn't realize that you'd want me to do that. And we've now had so many planners go through this program and give such amazing feedback. If you want to check it out, it's called Union Mastermind. We'll have it linked in the show notes or down below, wherever you're watching this, because I was really perturbed and annoyed by these certification courses for so many reasons. So backstory, I had someone work for me who, a couple of years ago, who had gone through a certification course where she spent, I think $1,500 to $2,000 on this wedding planner certification, spent, a decent chunk of change on getting certified through a college, and had her intern for us. She did fantastic. She literally, at the end of the event, went, I learned more from you today than I learned in my entire 6 to 8 week program over in this certification course. She's like, I haven't learned anything even remotely close to this. This boots on the ground experience was night and day in comparison to what we're learning there. And we have to take all this with a grain of salt. I have never been through a wedding planner certification course. I don't see the need to. But I'm also not the parent that's going to tell my kids that they have to go to college. Love them or hate them, Elon Musk has this mentality of if you want to learn something, it already exists on the internet. You just need to go teach yourself. And I think that there is a strong argument to be made for wedding planners who want to start a wedding planning business, but think that certification is the only way to do this. And I'm here to tell you otherwise. As a 7-year veteran in the business, we are now running a very successful company. We've pivoted to much more digital content. Thanks, 2020. Appreciate it. But I also know a large number of wedding planners, of peers in this space who have no sort of certification whatsoever. And I gotta tell you, I am on an Alex Hormozy kick. If you are not listening to the Game podcast, you gotta get over there because there's so much... Okay, Slight random aside, I really feel like the wedding industry gives really bad business advice. Like, the more I'm watching the business space and watching what they're doing over there, and then the more I'm like looking at the wedding planning space, I'm like, we are getting it so wrong. I don't understand how so many people are just operating off of these traditional ideas, or like, this is that's how you run a wedding business. And I'm like, why? Why do we have to? So I think that there's a lot of prudence to going to listen to someone outside of our space, of our sphere, and then like copy pasting what they're doing in their mentality on the wedding industry itself, because I think there's a lot of it that's antiquated. It's probably a conversation for another time. But this was all inspired from a podcast that I listened to him. So I might be regurgitating some thoughts that he had, but I listened to it like a week or two ago and I took some notes. And so that's what I'm sharing with you here. If I can figure out what podcast it was, I will happily share it with you, like specific, so you can cross compare and see how accurate I was at representing some of his ideas. But this is all my inspiration that I received from some of the stuff that he's sharing over there. To me, certification feels a lot like what my dad defined as a college diploma back in the day, back when I was working on mine. I'm still 2 classes away from actually getting my diploma. I know. I just need to finish it and just get it done, and then I could have my diploma. Don't come for me. But he said that a college degree is literally holding up a piece of paper to an employer saying, I jumped through the hoops that were asked of me effectively, and I received this piece of paper. And when he said that, and this man has done a lot of higher education. He's a pastor, so he's not only gone to college, he got his master's, he went to seminary, like he's done a lot of higher level education, right? His whole thing was like, yeah, it's so you can say to a potential employer one day, I jumped through these hoops and they gave me this piece of paper, and it transformed the way I thought about it. He's like, hey, honestly, sweetie, C's to get degrees. Like, you can get through and get that degree and really walk away having learned nothing other than I was able to sponge up and regurgitate things in an effective manner for all of these quizzes, all of these tests, all of these papers, but who knows what's left in there. I think the same can be said for the wedding planning space, for the wedding planner certification space. I jumped through hoops, I paid money, I put skin in the game, and I educated myself on this business, right? I learned how to plan a wedding, again, with the air quotes, if you couldn't see it, through this certification course, and somebody that I gave $2,000 to said I did it effectively enough to stand in front of you today. You know, Elon Musk is a huge proponent of this, and love him or hate him, I mean, the man is clearly he's got enough money to probably be considered an effective business person, whether or not you agree with wherever he falls with all of his opinions. But he's like, I don't see the point of college. I don't. Any knowledge that you want to access exists on the internet. You just need to have the ability to teach yourself. And I'm sitting here and I'm proof of that. And it's not like ooh, look at me, gosh, gag. That is so not what I'm trying to do here. But I taught myself how, because I couldn't find anyone else that would teach me how to do it, because wedding planners are so cagey and like so gatekeepy, and I couldn't stand it. So I was like, all right, perfect example. In the master plan, which is like the online course I offer for couples, I have like the ultimate wedding planning checklist of like when you should be booking different things and what vendors at what time and during what's blah, 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 blah. And I went on Pinterest and I downloaded like 20 different checklists, again with a finger quotes, and compared them and made up my own based on those of like, yes, I like that. No, that doesn't make sense. And that's one of the main forms that we use in the master plan, is something that I went on the internet and went, I agree, I disagree, I agree, I disagree, and put it together on a piece of paper. I educated myself on that specifically, and now we use that in the master plan. Don't tell anyone my secret. So if the knowledge out there already exists, and it's a matter of boots on the ground and getting yourself out there and educating yourself, I mean, you're already here. You're already listening to an industry podcast. You're already trying and moving in this direction. So kudos to you. Like, you are actively trying to pursue something in this industry. But if the feeling or general sensation is it doesn't count until I get certified, I'm here to tell you that is absolutely dead wrong. Now, before we launch into this specifically, I of course would be remiss if I didn't say, like, I have something that it comes with a certification, but only because people want it. That's not the intent of what we do. We have something called the Union Mastermind, because people were coming to me and saying like, hey, how do you do this? Like, how do you start a wedding planning business? And I went, oh my gosh, you want to talk to me? You want me to show you how to do that? Yeah. And we turned it into this mastermind. Now, a huge thing of what we do in the mastermind specifically is how to build a successful wedding planner business. Not just where to put a fork, because who the F cares where the fork goes if you're not going to be in business in 6 months, if you don't know how to get clients, if you don't know how to convert people on sales calls. Like, you're not going to make it very far if you don't have the effective foundation of a good wedding planner business. So yes, you gotta learn somewhere how to plan a wedding. We also include access to the master plan as a part of the mastermind. Should you choose to jump in there, poke around at your own pace, I teach you how to plan a wedding in the same way that I teach couples how to do it. But the bulk of what we do is focusing on a healthy, sustainable business so you're around in 5 years. Because why are we spending all this time and all this money and all this effort if you're just going to crash and burn? That is so not what I want for you. So that's where we differ. I offer a badge. I offer certification. I say Jamie Wolfer certified for people to throw on their websites if they want to. Like, that's jazzy. That's great. But that's not the main tenets of what we do. So just wanted to clarify, like, I don't want to sound like a total hypocrite here because that's definitely not my intent. But a wedding planner certification is a safety net. It is there to make you feel safe. Honestly, it feels like a procrastination technique. And I say this because a girlfriend of mine totally called me out early on in my business, and I had done the branding and I put it all together and I was like, I hate it. And I went back to her because she'd helped me with my website. And I was like, I hate it. I want to rebrand. Like, we've been alive as a business for 6 months and it's stupid and I hate everything. And she's like, so us in the website building industry often refer to branding as a procrastination technique to keep you from actually working on your business in the areas that need more attention. Your branding is good enough as is. You should return to the drawing board and go back to the things that need actual work. And if in a year or two you still don't like your branding, that's a different conversation, right? But don't get caught. Don't get bogged down in the font type when you are not actually even running a business yet. Yikes. I'm going to read directly from my notes on this one. Waiting on a wedding planning certification is an excuse to not succeed in your entrepreneurial efforts because you have a buffer. Like, it buys you time to then be educated on it, but you're not actually boots on the ground. Going back to that reference of like the gal who I brought in as an intern learned more in one day at an actual wedding with me than she had in a 2-month wedding planner certification course. That makes me angry and it makes me sad. It also displaces the responsibility and defers it till later. It makes it so, well, once I finish the certification, then, I will have my certification and people will take me more seriously. No, people will take you seriously if you're good at your job. The certification doesn't mean anything because there is no national standard. There is no set of guidelines or rules that, at least here in the States, and I can't find it anywhere else, that says this is what a wedding planner needs to know, needs to do, has to have in order to be considered a wedding planner. It is completely entry level. The only thing inhibiting you and your success in this industry is you. And so a certification course might be the way that you learn the information that you need to learn, but it already exists out there. This is, to be fair, coming from the person who's probably not going to be shoving my kids in the direction of college. I feel like there's so many different entrepreneurial journeys that they could take if they want to, and the information exists out there. And I don't feel like they need to jump through the hoops to pay for that piece of paper to prove to an employer one day that they did all the things that they needed to do to be successful. Why? Because I'm living proof of that. And I'm not here to over-glorify my own life. I'm just here to use it as like a frame of reference. So just so you know where I'm coming from with my kids and our life situation in general, like that's our bent. If you can figure it out on your own and with the people around you, try that avenue first. Because the next thing about wedding planner certification is you can always go back and get it later. If you want to make sure that this is truly not a procrastination technique, not a safety net, not a confidence booster for yourself, go do the research for yourself first. Go start putting together your business plan. Go start researching weddings. Go watch some of my YouTube videos. Go absorb all the wedding planners on TikTok. Go start collecting this information and organizing it into a fashion of like, hey, I want to start a wedding planning business. I'm going to start building that out and then supplement with the research that I'm doing. If you then feel like you need to go back and get that certification, you can. I would almost bet you money you won't feel that way. That you won't look up in 6 months and go, man, I really should have spent $3,000 on that one-on-one intensive coaching certification process through weddingplanninginstitute.com. Because this sort of program is made for a very specific type of person. I don't think it necessarily works for everyone, but what inherently ends up happening is you end up in debt before you even get started. You haven't advertised. You don't have your branding. You don't have your bank account opened. You don't have an LLC or know if you're supposed to be a sole proprietor. You have nothing prepared other than you paid a lot of money to receive an intensive amount of education in a short period of time, and then they say, go with God. So you can end up in debt before you even get started, or you can go boots on the ground, hit the pavement running, and start learning about the industry to see if it's something that you'll actually be interested in and not get yourself in debt, because then we're not operating off of a negative. And then if you have $1,500 to spend, you can spend that towards maybe your first wedding expo and meeting couples and actually moving towards starting your business instead of, well, I just spent 3 months soaking up with a sponge all of this information so I could regurgitate it to pass these tests and get this knowledge, but how much of it actually sticks in such a short time frame? I don't know. Like I said, these programs are for a very specific sort of person, and it doesn't work for everybody. The third thing about wedding planner certification courses that really just grinds my gears is it feels like it's a guarantee. Like, once I become certified, people will hire me. No, because if you're still bad at a sales call, you're not going to be converting anybody. If you're not in front of any clients, there's no one to talk to. Just because you have the piece of paper, just because you invested that time and that money, does not mean that anyone is going to hire you. There is no guarantee here. It's perceived as less risky. And like you can get a job more easily. Like all of a sudden you can sign on for working with a really high-end planner. And sometimes that's the case. And if that's what you want to do, like I said, it's a specific brand. It's a specific sort of person. It's a specific type of course, type of certification that really does like single track send you in that direction. But if you're wanting to start your own business, you're now in debt, you've got all this information, and you still don't know how to sell yourself. You have to reframe your mindset around what this looks like. Who is responsible for starting this business? Who is responsible for this education process? One thing I recommend to everyone in the mastermind and that I try really hard to do is to be a student of this industry. Join Facebook groups. I talked about this on another podcast recently where a young mom who she was pregnant with her second and like left the mastermind. And because, baby number 2, there's a lot going on. We had a one-on-one meeting and she was like, I just feel like I'm stagnant and I'm not moving forward and I'm not making progress. And I'm in all these Facebook groups and I'm watching all these planners and et cetera, et cetera. And I went, no, okay, wait, stop. Let's just stop right there for a sec. You're in Facebook groups. You're in there. You're paying attention. You're watching these conversations. You're learning. All of this is progress. This is all moving forward in the correct direction in such a great trajectory that like you're educating yourself in the process. This is not a one size fits all. You have to learn all this information in 12 weeks. That is so hard to do, especially for those of us that are moms. You want me to get enough information in 12 weeks to be able to run a successful business to sustain my family? That's not happening. That's why our program's a 6-month program. And we have one course, one module a month that we need to go through and a live call that we go through a month because it has to be paced for natural life, like really and truly. Otherwise, it's not going to be effective. I don't want you to be a sponge soaking up information just to regurgitate it for a test. That's not the point. I want to encourage you. I want to inspire you and I want to push you. I want you to be involved in a community that supports you and understands you and is really excited about what you're doing, and a community of your peers. If you give a man a fish, you will feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you will feed him for a lifetime. A certification course probably has a ton of merits. In fact, I have weddingplanninginstitute.com pulled up right here because they paid the most to be advertised the highest on Google. And they have a couple different options, which, again, to each his own. This could work really fantastically for some people. This could be how they want to learn, or maybe they need a certification to get hired on with a high-end wedding planning business. Not the people that we deal with. We require no sort of certification at all whatsoever. For us, it's about the heart and about the desire to run a successful business and why you're doing this with couples. You need the education, yes, but sometimes you won't get it until you get boots on the ground anyways. And they have a section here that says what you'll learn. You'll develop service packages that give you competitive edge in your local market. Do you actually go over the pricing in a local market? Again, another gal that went through our mastermind went through another person's mastermind type thing, and it sounds like that one was so not helpful, which is so disappointing. I want wedding planners to win, and I'm not trying to bash people who go through certification process. I want you to win. I want this to be a win for you. I just see so many holes in this procedure, in this process. But that she just glazed over pricing, was I charge $10,000 now, so good luck figuring that out. Drives me bonkers. It'll help you establish a portfolio of business contracts, presentation tools, pricing packages, know difference between traditional and non-traditional etiquette, set up a legal business, be proficient in prospecting for and contracting with wedding and special event clients, market, publish, and utilize public relations to promote and increase your business, plan a budget, select a vendor, and design a wedding. That sounds robust. Like, don't get me wrong. That sounds like there are a lot of offerings in here. We cover things like legal business. We cover things like how to prospect clients, how to market and publish and utilize. And what's really unique here is I don't see a lot of what we offer specifically in the mastermind, which are the issues I came across that I felt like most people need the most support on. And that's stuff like branding, stuff like boundaries. I don't see anything on how to come up with a good brand or anything on how to work with boundaries for a client, because that is something that they will cross if you're not super clear, and they're not doing it intentionally. They're not trying to hurt you. But the reason that wedding planners specifically, or those in the wedding industry, get burnt out so quickly is because there's a lot of like, how do you communicate with these people? How do you set boundaries? How do you make sure that you're being an effective communicator to create satisfied clients? Not just market yourself or get published or utilize public relations, but like actually have satisfied customers. I get really worked up about this. So there's an element to this that's like almost like it gives you a fish. But is it teaching you to fish? Is it teaching you a reliable, sustainable way of interacting with customers to create consistently happy couples at the end of their wedding day? That's what I'm not seeing here. And that is something that we do in our program specifically, because that's not what you'll find in a lot of certification programs. Everything that I just read off to you, you can find on the internet. You can literally Google it, find an answer for it, and have it ready to go. What I like about these kind of structures is it's pre-packaged and it's nice and neat and clean and convenient, and you don't have to do the research. But again, a very specific type of person for this. You have to understand all the elements of a business in order for it to be successful. That's licensing. Yes, they have that included here. That's marketing. Yes, they have that included here. They have a little bit more of like a PR angle here, but yes, they do have marketing. Branding, not mentioned at all. It could be deeper in, again, I've never been through one of these. It could be there, but that's a huge focus. Delivery, nothing about delivery. I think I read a little bit further where they talk about bridal expos, wedding expos in general. I don't know if they talk you through how to sell yourself. And then lastly, selling yourself, because that's what you're doing. When you're trying to get someone to book with you as a wedding planner, you got to sell yourself. You have to know how to communicate that. You have to meet them where they're at, talk them through their fears and their concerns and assuage those. This tells you wedding information that you could Google. It doesn't tell you how to successfully navigate through things with clients. It also doesn't work through the sting of rejection, of being ghosted, of handling that, of processing that. You will fail. You will not book every client you talk to. That's not going to happen. And that's discouraging. You're like, I have all this wedding planning knowledge. Look, I'm certified. Why won't anybody book me? You got to process through that. I highly recommend having a community to talk through that with. This isn't just about you being passionate. This is about you being an effective salesperson and an effective communicator. It is so much deeper because we are dealing with, air quotes, one of the best days of people's lives. And they have high expectations and they need an effective communicator who cares where the fork goes if you get burnt out after 18 months. And you've invested $3,500 on one-on-one mentoring with a professional wedding planning coach, only to have not survived to see your second calendar year. There is nothing proprietary about wedding planning certification courses. There is no national standard. There is no requirement. There's nothing on any of these syllabi or lists that I've seen that you cannot Google. And that's not to say you couldn't Google how to do sales. And that's not to say you couldn't Google or be a part of a Facebook group with other industry professionals. You can put together an amalgamation of this own thing on your own. I did. We've gone through it. Sometimes you don't want to. Sometimes you want to opt for the option where it just teaches you how to do it, right? And that is where that certification comes into play. You're like, hey, I want to get this off the ground in 6 months. I need to get all of this into my brain noggin as quickly as possible to regurgitate it, to make sure that I am starting my wedding planning business. Boom, we're ready to go. There may be a time and place for this. There are so many holes in this $3,600 program that really and truly, who cares if you're certified? If you are going into debt and you can't run a business when you're done with the program, I see that as a problem. I recognize that this could be some spicy thoughts on certification in general. So I welcome you to the table if you want to have more conversations about this. If this rung true or struck a chord in you, please go share this on socials. Like, I really want to get a conversation going around this because there's this idea that if you're not certified, you don't count, and that's so not true. I would love for couples to hear this. I would love for other wedding industry professionals to hear this. I would love for those who really want to get started in the industry to hear this. There is no gold standard when it comes to any of this. There are certain rules and etiquette things you should probably learn. Yes. It's not proprietary, and you can figure it out. But if you want a community that supports you and helps you walk through it and helps you figure out how to set up boundaries and communicate with clients effectively to ensure that you are getting consistently satisfied customers every time, I invite you to please come join us in the mastermind, because this is where we have so much discourse around these things. And I think that this could be extremely helpful for those of you that are wanting to get started.